And that's how change works, I think, when the pressure and the angst of staying the same is outweighs the angst of change. Because you're going to
Hmm.
get stress either way. You can have stress by staying small and suppressed or entitled, whatever it is.
Hmm.
And then there's stress with change. You get to choose your adventure, if you will. One just takes a lot more courage.
Hello, and welcome to the Queer Vision Podcast. I am your host, Becca. Coe is not here today, but that is okay because we had an amazing conversation with Mary-Carmen. She is a mindfulness educator. Mindfulness therapist, she works with people about mindfulness. And there is there are a lot of really good nuggets in this episode about how to come to peace with yourself and accept yourself for who you are. If you are a human in this world, sit down, put your headphones on, and listen. Maybe even take some notes. And at the end, you should go support Mary-Carmen and maybe take a class or two. Okay, listen up, and we'll learn together. Normally, what we do to start is we just have you introduce yourself, give your pronouns, and then anything about you that you just like off the cuff want people to know.
My name is Mary-Carmen, she, her pronouns. I am in my early 40s. I have a few kiddos and a few exes and a dog and ducks. Actually, I have about 13 ducks that I love. They don't love me, but I love them. I have a master's in mindfulness communications. Sorry, I have a master's in mindfulness studies with emphasis on communications. I have a bachelor's in psychology, and I am the founder and owner of Create Space Mindfully. I offer workshops on a variety of topics, but through the lens of mindfulness and awareness practice. So helping people know their mind better, as well as mapping others' minds, regardless of what's actually being said.
Wow. Okay, so there's a lot of different things that I could jump into, but I mean we asked you here specifically because I know you and Coe talked a little bit more about the mindfulness than like you and I did because I was with you when you were taking photos. They were with you and doing makeup, right? So it's a little more intimate. But that's honestly why we kind of wanted you on here to talk a little bit about that. Obviously, we would love to learn more about like just how queerness has affected you in your life in general, but it seems like you just like to do a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I was even thinking, like, what is my definition of queerness? The running idea that I have is, the story that I was encouraged to be put into a box, my identity, my personality. I'm a cisgendered woman, and I was raised in the LDS faith or Mormon, which I left about 6 years ago. And so queerness, the word itself is pretty new to me.
Mm.
But the running idea that I have for what it is that I was offered to be put into a box. I was told, what I look like and how I was supposed to act was supposed to be in the box. And queerness, in my
Mhm.
opinion, is blowing up a box that actually never existed to begin with.
I
So
like that.
that's my deconstructing of um, heteronormative, of what femininity is, masculine, even good and what good and bad is. Um,
Mm.
there's a lot. And queerness seems to be like this overarching term that I've kind of put on top of layers of other ideas and be like, what
Mhm.
fits, what doesn't? And it seems to always be changing for me personally. So
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I think that's why whenever I started getting more into like the weeds of all of this company and also just community and stuff like that, I think I stopped saying LGBTQ as much because I was like, well, there's so many more levels to that. It's not just LGBTQ. It's also like two-spirit. It's like a thousand different things, right? Like under that umbrella. And that's why like whenever we created this, we were like, let's do queer because it's not just the people that have a different sexuality or are like practicing with gender or, are trans or whatever. It's not just that. It's also like the people who just looked at society and was like, I don't need to do that. Like, I know I'm a woman, but like, I'm going to go and do this traditionally male dominated thing. That's queer, right? Like, and it affects all of us in different ways, right? But like, I mean, I agree with you 100%. It is very much changing every single day what not only I see it as, but what the experience is like.
Yeah, it really is. And I've noticed how I was taught to relate to things is through overwhelm or martyr or
Mm,
suppression. And I can get even into those in Buddhism, they call them false refuges. So I
okay.
go into these places where I think I'm safe, like overwhelm
Hmm.
or being a martyr or a victim.
Hmm.
They're not really psychologically safe places, but I know them pretty well. But even relating to my queerness and the journey of exploration of learning who this person, Mary-Carmen, is, obviously I'll still get into these places where I'm like, no, let me suppress that, or that's too overwhelming. I'm not going to explore that area, or that's
Hmm.
wrong. So I'm not going to go over there. No, no, no,
Yep.
no. So even in my path, obviously, there's these very normal, very human obstacles that society first offered me,
Hmm.
but I also continue to suppress and kind of gaslight myself as well. So my work helps people see where they get into these false refuges, these places
Hmm.
where they think they're safe in their exploration, psychologically safe, right here. I'm not talking about the outer, broader
Right. 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 Right.
and how actually we have a lot more control over the psychological. There's a few caveats I offer with that than we think. I think we have more autonomy over how we navigate this world than
Hmm.
society definitely wants us to know that we have.
A lot to take in, I think. Like, I think that, like, I've experienced that feeling a couple times in random ways, right? Like, I think the day that I noticed that, like, I could have ice cream for breakfast if I wanted to and nobody was gonna stop me was, like, just I was just off all day because I was like, "Oh my god, like, there are no real rules. Like, that's all fake. Oh, it's all fake." Like, and then you just go a little existential for a second, you're like, "Time doesn't even exist. Like, what is this?" Like, and so I love that. It is hard to sit in that space.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, what does it look like when you're faced with the possibility of eating ice cream? Not only you're faced with the possibility of eating ice cream for breakfast, but the larger context that it's all made up anyway. How do you
Mhm.
balance allowing yourself to see it's all made up while still being grounded in a flesh and bones bodysuit?
Yeah, I that is something that I think is a very hard conversation and goes differently for every single person, right? How do you work with your clients through that?
Yeah, especially since so many people in the queer community, so many people of color, I think people who have been socialized as female, I think all genders have their ways of being socialized. It's not
Right,
safe to show up authentically. It's not safe to
right.
show up in your body. Harm has been done. And that was the caveat I was talking about earlier to profess that you can be psychologically safe only of your own accord
Mhm,
without talking about the larger context of society having harmed people who have done just that.
mhm.
I think I mean, it's potentially is just as harmful. It can be harmful with unintended consequences. We don't live in a
Right,
vacuum. So
right.
there are lots of people who do not feel safe in their body.
Mhm,
They only know how to relate to their body through disassociation or othering their body, that their body is separate. There's not a
mhm.
relationship of kindness because it maybe hasn't been taught to them. And even my thesis was on the inner dialogue of women with ADHD and how
Oh,
mindfulness and nonviolent communication can actually rewire our brains for those of us who have a highly critical voice inside. And how we relate to our bodies can just be the tip of the iceberg for pointing to this inner critic that we have been taught to relate to embody, to think about. The way we live life is through this critical lens, and our bodies are the first ones that are usually under attack. So it's a big deal.
Wow.
You're pointing to
Yeah.
something really important.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I definitely see that a lot, right? Like, obviously, you've studied this, like, you know it's true, right? But, the more that you say it, I feel like I am recognizing it not only, like, in myself, in my friends, in my family, and just the way that, like, even, like, diet culture where it's like, well, my body needs it. Well, okay, you are your body. Like, how do you relate with the food that you're eating too? Like, it's not just about the physical, it's also about like the mental, right? Like, are we not over exaggerating, overcorrecting one way and harming the other? And I think that's a very important distinction because like I mean, I have a disability that just like my body just like decides sometimes that it doesn't want to work, right? Like your heart decides it doesn't want to do the thing that it's supposed to do, or your joints decide they don't want to, you know, bend without falling out of place, right? And it is really hard not to just disassociate and be like, well, I don't want to be in pain all the time, so I'm just going to pretend that my body doesn't exist within me, right? So how do you go about working with somebody to become vulnerable with their own body again, to be okay with the discomfort, to work through the fact that maybe they are one way, but they can't be that way because it's not safe societally? Like, how do you work through those conversations with people?
I mean, that's a big, beautiful question because I think it's very real for a lot of people in the queer
Mhm.
community. I work with a lot of neurodiverse individuals, and I know the overlap between the queer and neurodiversity is there's a they call it a there's a word, insert smart word, statistically significant
Okay.
correlation.
Insert smart word. Got it.
So what I offer is psychoeducation around the fact that your brain is disassociating for really, really good reasons. Even the self-criticism, there are some intelligent reasons to do that. The coping mechanisms that we tend to fall in, as diverse as humans are, we have certain patterns of bad coping mechanisms that are
Mhm.
actually really intelligent. A lot of these coping behaviors we learned before we could even speak the words,
Okay.
definitely before we even know the dynamics around coping with pain, physical pain, for example. So I offer with the psychoeducation tons of compassion, saying there's nothing going wrong with disassociation in the sense that that's what our bodies do. That's what our minds do with our bodies in really tough situations. It makes sense that you would go there.
Okay.
And through practices, exercises, tools, rituals, I offer that same education in tandem with compassion. Even though we don't like it, and even though disassociation, for example, it's probably interfering with my daily life in a negative way, creating space for that facet of my humanity, in my opinion, has been integral to actually making room for growth, for a different option, for finding different tools to support my pain level, for example, as
Okay.
opposed to what we usually do. And I offer the psychoeducation for that. There's some really beautiful reasons why we do this. We judge our coping behaviors, especially when they like, for example, when particularly with women finding out how critical they are of themselves, they start to become
Mhm.
critical of the criticism. We judge the judgment.
No calling me out. It's fine. It's fine.
I said we here, Rebecca. I said we. Why do you think I've come to this work? There's a lot of suffering before I got to where I can actually see these things, right? So there's a
Right.
we right here, love.
Okay. So
But
so
that's
what I'm hearing then, sorry, go ahead.
no, you can clarify.
Okay, so what I'm hearing then is that it's basically you're working with people to not have the all or nothing kind of mentality of, well, disassociation causes negative things in my life as well as protecting me. So we're working with it and understanding that sometimes I do need to disassociate to protect myself while also setting limits. Is that kind of what
Yeah, I think
you?
that'd be
Okay.
a beautiful first few steps in
Okay.
Because when we bring shame to ourselves, it actually interferes with
Mm-hmm.
learning. The part of our brain that can learn, that can receive, that can absorb information is shut down when
Mm-hmm.
there's shame. And I don't know if you've experienced much shame in your life, love, about your
Never.
queerness.
Shame free. Always. 100%. Yep.
I love this for you. And that's not everyone's experience, right?
Right. Right.
So to be able to offer self-compassion is intentionally trying to counteract the shame that we tend to go towards, which shuts our brain
Mm-hmm.
down, we can't learn. And when we can't learn, there's no self-exploration, there's no room.
Mm.
There's no like elbow room. Create Space was
Right.
made out of this feeling that I experienced of this contracted place of shame and judgment and pain. And it comes from the quote that's attributed to Viktor Frankl, in between the stimuli and the response. So a stimuli is something that happens and a response
Mm-hmm.
is something we do.
Mm-hmm.
In between the stimuli and the response, there's a space. And in that space is our ability to choose. And with that choice is our freedom. Create space. When I am contracted, it feels like there is no room for an actual response. There's only reactivity. The
Okay.
knee jerk, reactive, explosive, suppressive energies that we all do. Create Space was essentially what tools, psychological tools, let's back up a bit, can I make room, create space
Okay.
for the expansion, for the breadth of my humanity, leaving nothing out,
Right.
even the ugly bits.
I like that. I like that. I feel like we have a lot more ability to do that for others. Like, I feel like whenever you are in any type of relationship, friendship, whatever types of relationship, right? I feel like it's so much easier to see somebody and be like, you need to rest, dude. Like, you're pushing yourself way too hard. But then whenever you see it internally, it's much easier to be like, I should have done this. My to-do list was way too long today, but like, hey, I only got like 3 things done. And then you don't think about, you know what, but I also had a migraine, or, but I also had like this other work, or like, but I was helping a friend through this and I was blah, 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 the things that aren't on your to-do list. Or, even just, yeah, but it was a really nice day outside and I decided to take a 3-hour walk, because I also deserve to enjoy life, right? And I think that's the thing that I am correlating this to, is the conversation that I've had with a few different people where it's like, treat yourself the way you would treat your best friend, right? If you wouldn't yell at your best friend about this, stop. Like, it's okay. Like, breathe for a hot second. That's like how I'm feeling from your description of what you do for your clients.
Yes, you are offering this tool that you already know of creating space for you to
Right.
say, yeah, I did have this list of to-dos and I didn't get them all done. Yeah, I really wanted to get them all done. And offering yourself compassion, not an excuse. Compassion's not an excuse. Compassion is expanding your ability to love. That
Right.
includes yourself. To say, I loved that 3-hour walk. Or that friend, I am so glad I was able to show up for them because they did need me. That
Right.
that salts bath that I fell asleep in, don't fall asleep in salts bath. That was so delicious and healing for me, healthy for me. These are the
Yeah.
ways that we can offer that really ooey gooey kindness to ourselves. Absolutely.
I love that so much, because I do think, especially right now, like, obviously, I think what you're doing is very important in general. I think everybody needs to learn how to let go of what society has shamed us into, or society has taught us to shame ourselves into, in general, right? But I think, especially with how things are going right now, it is so easy to just wake up defensive and wake up already stressed and anxious. And I think it's like exponentially more important to have people like you in people's lives, right? To be like, hey, everything is stressful. It's okay. Like, let's breathe through it. Let's work through it. Let's figure out how we can be okay. And I think that is phenomenal. And I bet your clients are in love with you. You are amazing. I bet your kids love you. They either love you or they're like, oh my God, mom, shut up.
Now who's calling who out? That's exactly what they are. They come to me they come to me from school and they're like, "Mom, we learned this thing about mindfulness today." I'm like, "Ooh, tell me more."
Wait, how old are your kids?
Let's see, they are 16 to 8.
Okay, okay, so they're, like, about the age that you like, the ages that you can have, like, good conversations with them, and, like, you're probably
Yeah.
learning so much from them too, because you've taught them so much through their lives that they, like, experience life so much differently.
I don't know. That's hard to see because I'm like you were talking about, you made a beautiful point earlier about when we notice someone else struggling, we can easily
Mhm,
identify it and offer them compassion. It's a little more
right,
tricky when it's us that's the one that's struggling, right? And I think it's the
right,
same for like knowing where you how you're doing as a parent. I think there are some markers that people can see to say, all right, I am according to my integrity I'm doing what I know and think is best for my kiddos.
mhm, right,
But there's also a lot of unknowns, like, uh, I don't have any examples of parenting like this.
right, that's true, yeah,
I really think this is the best, and I could be wrong.
true, yeah.
Here I go.
I forget who said something like this, and I don't know if it was an interview we had or if it was something I saw on TikTok, but it was a conversation about, like, realizing as an adult that your parents are living their life for the first time too, and, like, hey, they did their best. They might have fucked up, but they did their best, and, like, you might be upset about things they did, but they did it out of the goodness of their heart. Usually, I mean, we do know there are bad people. We understand that. We're caveat, I guess. But, like, I don't know. I think it's very cool though. Like, I think they're gonna look back and be like, I know how to be compassionate with myself because my mom or maybe they won't recognize that it was you, but they know. They're like, "You know what? I'm already a step ahead there. Okay. I feel good taking a break."
I would hope so. I mean, I have at least one high achieving, probably two kiddos, the older ones. And I'm the one telling them not to study for the test.
Oh, yeah.
I'm the one telling them, "Take a break. Don't review those notes again, love." I mean, I
Yeah.
don't tell them. I just this is what I think, right? Because you can't tell them anything
Right. Right, right.
directly. This is what I'm offering. I think you've been
Yeah.
studying really hard. I'm really proud of you. I see
Mhm.
that you're being pretty irritable with your sibling. For me, when I'm irritable, that's it's a result of not taking care of my basic needs.
Mm,
Can I get you a
mhm.
sandwich? Can you take a break? Where are you in the
Right,
studying? So yeah,
right,
they don't usually thanks mom, you're the best. No, but
right.
it's not why we parent anyway.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't, but it is, I think I'm not a parent, right? But I am a daughter, and I had parents that did not similar things. It wasn't like the mindfulness stuff, but it was very much like the why are you taking 21 credit hours when you could be taking 18? Like you're pushing yourself a little hard. Or, hey, I think that you're overthinking this thing. Instead of stressing yourself out about doing it exactly how you think you should do it, let's just take a step back and like read it together, like that kind of stuff. And in the moment, I was so frustrated. Right? Like I was just like, I just want to get it done. Like I just want to be able to be normal. I would just want to whatever, whatever, whatever. And now looking back, I'm like, man, they taught me so much. And I don't even know if they realized it. Right. And so I think like, I know you're not parenting to get a thank you, but on behalf of your children, thank you to their future families and friends, because I think it really does create such a difference in how we communicate with ourselves and with others whenever we have parents who are as I don't wanna say calm because you're probably not always calm, but generous and loving, I guess. That's so thank you.
Well, yeah, I appreciate you putting on me the best characteristics that I don't always embody, but that is my
No one
intention.
does.
So I think our intentions go farther than maybe we think.
100%. 100% they do. Sorry, my dog is, like, right next to me, and, like, he's not laying on the blanket that I laid out for him, he's laying half on it and keeps pushing my laptop the table my laptop's on this way, so I'm, like, trying to make sure it's not going anywhere. Okay, so backtracking a little bit, what made you, in the first place, start studying mindfulness and communication the way that you did? Was it you just threw a dart and were like, "You know what? I'm kinda interested in this thing," and then just took a snowball? Or was it more of like a, "Hey, actually this sounds really interesting. I'm really, really excited to learn more." Like, what got you into this?
Well, it's not a pretty background, but a lot of pain, a lot of anxiety,
Right.
depression, feeling overworked and underfucked, just not as so much work and not enough pleasure. And I had how I was taught about pleasure, which just wasn't, there wasn't even language for it.
Okay.
So I was introduced to my teacher about 6 years ago, 7 years ago, out of desperation. A friend of mine had found David, my mentor, was doing a workshop over the weekend, and I had 4 kids and
Mm-hmm.
a neurospicy husband. I'm neurospicy. We didn't know it.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing everything in the household because I thought that's what I was supposed to do to be good. I was also the director of the women's organization for our local church at the time with a
Mm-hmm.
myriad of responsibilities for that. And I literally was like, this sounds half interesting and I need a break from everything. So made up the best of intentions, but it got me in the door at least. So
Okay, so
David,
so you were like a full adult though, like whenever you decided to like take this on. So you kind of knew what you were getting into.
no, I had no idea to get.
Okay, maybe not.
Same thing when I started dating women. No idea what I was getting myself into.
None of us do.
But there was enough of an interest and enough suffering in the Buddhist term,
Mm-hmm.
just complete lack of vitality and unsatisfactory feelings around my life that both was
Right.
like, sure, let's try it.
Yeah.
And so I went to the workshop. It was a 2-day thing, and I didn't really understand what the teacher was talking about that much. I was like, awareness practice. I mean, I'm aware, I'm awake, I'm looking around.
Right.
And then through a series of exercises and group work and individual work over the
Mm-hmm.
next few years, I get to see how my mind just makes up stuff and is not anchored in reality. And then I
Right.
get to find the patterns of how my mind just does its thing. And I can actually have more autonomy over what my mind does rather than my mind is just a program that plays whatever it has learned to play and has been doing so most of my life. So a lot of negative quote unquote things in my life kind of
Mm-hmm.
pushed me into I need to try something different. This whole Christianity thing, I was kind of getting a little I guess at first I was starting just to get a little suspicious around.
Mm-hmm.
And Buddhism offered me the psychological tools to start looking at why am I in this religion? One facet of many in my life. Is it feeding my soul? What are the ways that I relate to this? How does this
Mm-hmm.
thing relate to me? And how they relate to me, is that aligned with what I want in the world, with my integrity, with where I want to
Right.
go? And then getting really, really honest with myself about those answers.
Wow. Okay, so how long was this process of just like, I mean, you're probably still doing it, but I mean like that truly difficult, okay, I need this life change. How long was that for you? And like and if you're comfortable sharing it, about what age? Because I feel like a lot of us, like I'm 31, right? And I've gone through a lot of changes in the last 5 years. It feels very much like I should be on a life path, right? So like what what was this experience like for you as an adult, changing
Mm.
things like this?
It was the hardest thing I've ever done.
Does that include childbirth? Shit,
Yes.
I love this.
Yeah. Because, oh my gosh, there's so many things. To get more authentic, in my opinion, we have to go through a lot of invalidation from
Okay.
others. So, what that means is for me to really have the space within myself to explore and learn about me and how I want to relate to the world around me, depending on who you are and how you've set up your life so far, the people who aren't doing that aren't going to like you doing that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
checks out, unfortunately.
And and they're not doesn't mean they're bad people or they're malicious or I mean, they can be, obviously.
Right.
That's what we do in the face of change when we don't have enough courage. And
Mm,
we do this our worst days. And then on our best days, we do have courage. So to your question, I think the biggest piece for me, the shift was quick, less than a year.
okay,
I was,
okay.
yeah, less than a year, I was learning about Buddhism, started a practice, meditation practice, and working with my teacher, left the church, and I actually moved a few times, like physically. And that was 2020. So that was during COVID as well, to
So when
boot.
the world blew up. You just decided, you know what? Let's just
Might
add
as
to it.
well
It's
blow
okay.
up with it.
More power to you.
I mean, it was the worst timing and it was the best timing because I could not stay the same. And that's how change works, I think. When the pressure and the angst of staying the same is outweighs the angst of change because you're going to
Hmm.
get stress either way. You can have stress by
Right.
staying small and suppressed or entitled, whatever it is.
Hmm.
And then there's stress with change. You get
Hmm.
to choose your adventure, if you will. One just takes a lot more courage. And I feel like that's the
Right.
biggest hurdle for me was the invalidation of my family, who are all Mormon. My
Okay.
partner was Mormon. My kiddos were going to the like that. This was not just a church. This was honestly, I don't. This is where I was. So whatever, however this
Hmm.
falls, it's gonna fall. Me leaving the church felt like what I had heard from others because I hadn't gotten into my queerdom yet either at all at this
Hmm.
point.
Hmm.
Me leaving the church and coming out as a non-believer felt like very,
Hmm.
or at least I assumed what I understand about people coming out with their queerness, it was similar. There,
Okay.
especially if they knew their family wasn't going to accept or really encourage or applaud them
Right.
being honest, right? So it was a huge life change for me because my life revolved around this church and
Right.
the rules and the sanctions and ideologies. So when I started a few years later, I had been separated for over a year from my husband and
Hmm.
at the time, and I had been dating. I had been living polyamorous, or at least not ethically non-monogamous,
Okay.
for that year. And I started it was actually my birthday present to myself to start dating women. I don't know if that sounds horrible, but just like the act of opening myself up to this possibility, not the women themselves
Hmm.
were a gift to me, no, but the act of opening up to date a completely different demographic than I had ever
Hmm.
dated before. I said, "You're gonna, if you want to do this, let's have it be a gift." A coming of age, an expansion of your younger self. So I dipped my toe in and then jumped right into dating women. And let's see, age wise, I was I think 35 when I met awareness practice in Buddhism.
Hmm.
I was 37 when I started my master's program of mindfulness studies, which mindfulness is one of the seven pillars, if you will, of Buddhism. And I was 38 when I separated from my then husband. And I guess I was 40 when I started dating women for the first time. Um,
Okay.
and I think that answered your question.
Yeah, it did. I mean, I think that definitely helps because like I don't know if we talked about this during the photo shoot, but I had a lot of life change around like 2022. I think a lot of people did. 2020 was very much like a, you know what, the world is going to hell in a handbasket. I might as well be happy, right? And so I went from engineering, which I did enjoy engineering, did not enjoy the people.
Mm.
I was also having health issues, right? Figuring out that my body was deciding not to work, right? And that's whenever I switched to professional organizing. I was still in darts, right? I was like, I'll do modeling, I'll do acting, I'll do, anything I can just like easily grab onto, right? Started sewing, started organizing. Organizing took off, right? I've had that business for 5 years. And then, recession hit last year and the money that I was making disappeared, but I started to have queer Lina, right? And so I think like in my head, I had a very strong life path and then I altered it and then the altering worked and then it didn't work and then it's like, okay, well we're going to peter this way completely too. So it's like it's very comforting, I think, at least for me to see that you are very happy and that you are so comfortable in this change. Even through the discomfort, you are comfortable, which doesn't make sense, but it does. It does. I think that's very, very inspiring to me for the fact that, like, you know what? It's okay if this lasts 5 years and then something else takes off. Like, it's okay if everything changes again when I'm 40. Like, every decade can be different. I don't care because it doesn't have to specifically be that life path. And I think that that goes back to that shame that you were talking about, where it's like, well, but I worked so hard for that thing and then I gave up on it. And it's like, well, it stopped serving you. And I think that was very, very well said earlier as well.
Wow, I love that you have also adopted, probably in a messy way, you feel like most humans, this ability to tolerate the discomfort of change,
Hmm.
the leaning into the ebb and flow, because there is a flow to life. Our
Right.
best laid plans are just plan. They might not actually have anything to do with what's happening right now, even though we want it
Right.
to be.
Right.
So I applaud you for the maybe forced malleability, because if you had a lot of pain going on that you
Hmm.
had to have in order to roll with that flow, to say, okay, I'm not going to hate myself just because my plans didn't work or my
Right.
body is doing its thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I love this. I think that you are, I think this is going to be an amazing episode for most people who are living through right now, because I think a lot of people are going to be forced into that same change because we are in a recession, right? And I think people that thought, okay, it's going to be very easy for me to keep this job, or it's going to be very easy for me to go on this life path. Well, now I can't afford it. Now I have to work 3 jobs. Now I have to do this. Now I have to do that. And it's like being able to have that, okay, but I also deserve happiness. Like, I think this is a good reminder for them, for all of us.
Yeah. I don't know if to be honest, I don't know if I have anything to do with happiness, but I don't know if I can control happiness. I don't know. I'm still looking into that. But I can control how kind I am to myself.
That is very true. But I do think that with mindfulness and with kindness to yourself comes a more natural happiness. Like, it's just that moment when you wake up and you're like, it's okay. It's gonna be okay. And then it's just much easier to enjoy that 3 hour walk or that
Mm.
time with your friend where you're not being productive. I think that's very much like the happiness that we all deserve in it just existing. And I think don't do yourself a disservice by saying that you haven't figured out happiness because you are leading people towards it for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. There's just more things that I'm realizing I may not have as much control over it as I think there's a lot of things I have control over within my own
Yeah.
mind.
Right.
More things that I have to work with because I'm not as much in
Right.
control, right? And then there's just quite a few things I'm like, "Oh, wow." I mean, I have influence, but I really don't have
Mhm.
any control over this. And maybe, not that life is categorical, but if we were to categorize, like, I don't know where happiness falls. That's all I'm saying.
That's true. That's a very good point. That's a very good point. I think it falls, somewhere between letting go, which is hard, very hard, letting go and finding the things that you enjoy. So, I think
Mm.
that you are leading people towards that for sure. I think they'll find it. Maybe not on purpose, but they'll find it.
I didn't find it on purpose. I mean,
Oh,
not
no.
initially. Uh, yeah.
Well, we are getting to almost an hour, so I wanna make sure, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to talk about, or anything we've talked about that you'd like to talk more about?
No, we've gotten to some really great points. What about you? What comes up for you?
Honestly, this is an amazing conversation. I feel like I've already learned so much and, like, I've gotten motivated for the rest of the day just to
Yeah.
take it easy but get stuff done, you know? Like that energy. What is your website or how can people reach you so that people can be a part of your clientele?
Yeah, thank you. So createspacemindfully.com is my website. And
Okay.
on it, you can read more about me. But what I like to steer people towards are the events. So for right
Okay.
now, I have a lot of women focused events, and that's open to non
Okay.
binary, trans women, cis women, anyone who resonates with identifying as ADHD, neurodiverse. I have a Sunday afternoon course that works with their inner dialogue. So I offer nonviolent communication for how we talk
Okay.
to ourselves. I also have a a practice called swamping that I have offered to women and non-binary around grief and rage practices. So
Okay.
it's a 2 hour course where we do some body work, some meditation, maybe some movement in the meditation, I do
Okay.
some psychoeducation, allowing people to this idea that your body's not broken because of XYZ, whatever the grief or pain is, there's usually symptoms that we tend to have. And then I offer some cultural containers for why we tend to suppress our rage as women.
Okay.
And then I lead a swamping exercise where, I mean, a very crude way of saying it is it's a temper tantrum that I allow people to express. Here is our
Love
studio
it.
space where we can hit yoga mats, slam our fists onto the cushions, and I guide people into embodying their grief, their rage, and their sensuality. So it
I love
is
that.
reclaiming our senses, the experience of having a body and the senses that we have for ourselves, rather than through the patriarchal lens that we all are swimming in, that we are objects and we are there for the pleasure of others.
Mm.
So what energy do you want to take away from this experience? Who do you want to be? How do you want to have a cleaner emotional hygiene around the content of
Mm.
our lives that will induce grief and rage and try to steal your sensuality, your embodiment? So that's swamping.
Okay.
And then I also have a monthly support group. It hasn't started
Mm.
up yet this year for my neuro spicy friends. So if you believe or you know you are neurodiverse, we talk about all the way things around unmasking. We
Mm.
generally tend, as humans, it's a pro-social dynamic of masking, of putting on a certain face, right? I'm presenting right now to you a certain facet of me. But if
Right.
I was trying to hide parts of me, it would be called masking. And we have been taught to mask whoever you are to a certain degree. Research
Mm-hmm.
shows neurodiverse individuals mask even higher, more at longer rates, which deplete our energy. It usually leaves
Mm-hmm.
us feeling irritable. There's a lot of self-loathing, and we definitely can't present ourselves. We can't even embody ourselves as authentic us because we may not
Right.
even know who we are because we just have been wearing a mask most of our lives. So I offer practices and guidance and really just a community for people to say, this is my experience, but it's all rooted under in this. You get to decide for you what's right for you, what's healthy for you. These are just
Mm-hmm.
tools that might help you uncover who you are, what does support you, what does help you feel
Right.
alive, bring that vitality back into your life. Because fuck, I'm done now.
Right.
Yes, if I could have a wish for everyone in the world, it would be to be an over 40 woman, because for whatever reason around 40 our estrogen drops and we don't have any more fucks to give. We stop people pleasing as much, and the unmasking, unraveling, it feels like to a large extent, it is really difficult, and it is so lovely
Yeah. I
to
agree.
feel like you.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think it's also very refreshing, and I think honestly being in queer spaces has helped me a lot with that. Being a woman in a male dominated field was very much I had to mask, right? Because I was afraid of them, let's be honest, of being seen as lesser, right? And then once you get into queer spaces, you're like, okay, like I get to just be cool and weird and like nerdy, and people like that. And you know what? Even if they didn't, they wouldn't dislike it. So it doesn't matter. Like, even if they did dislike it, like, they're not going to be mean to me. So
I
I
hope
think that's
not.
very important for the queer spaces.
And even kink spaces, healthy kink
Mm,
spaces,
but yes,
even
obviously.
like exacerbate that beautiful experience of, I'm not going to yuck
Exactly.
your yum. I don't want you to yuck my yum. And let's
Yeah.
just enjoy and be here together doing whatever
Yeah.
is our yum.
Yeah. Exactly. I love that so much. Okay. So where are you located? Are you in Raleigh?
I am in Wake Forest, so near
Wake Forest.
Heritage High
Okay.
School. Yeah, the
Okay.
studio that I have is above a three-car garage, so it's at my residence, but it has this
Okay.
beautiful space surrounded by
Okay.
trees, overlooking a pond. It feels like the country,
I
even
love
though
that.
it's with lots of houses around.
But it feels like the oasis. Okay.
So the support group is $25.
Okay.
My other 2-hour workshops, they're mostly one and dones. Those are around 50.
Okay.
I think some of the places that I sell them on, like Eventbrite, charges, it's like $52, but
Because there's like
and
that fee, that
then
little added. Yeah.
yeah. And then my one-on-one sessions are between 100 and 150, depending on what we're doing per
Okay.
hour. So all in all, I'm hoping to be able to offer my services to a variety of individuals,
Hmm.
and I'll do free events around Raleigh area too. Like I'll be speaking at Elevated Energy in Raleigh and some 55 plus communities in the area.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Queer Vision podcast. Once again, my name is Becca, and I sat down today with Mary-Carmen. If you got something out of this episode, I want you to comment below what your favorite part was, what you learned, share with the world, because I think this was top 5 for sure for me, for interviews that I feel rejuvenated and changed afterwards. So, and don't forget to go to her website, createspacemindfully.com. Go to createspacemindfully.com, learn a little bit. You can take a class, you can share it with people. I'm continually amazed by everyone that we talk to, and this was no different. So, thank you so much to Mary-Carmen for sitting down with us. Like I said, go to her website, createspacemindfully.com, and then go to queerlina.org. If you have any questions about anything, you can reach out to us. If you want to find out about our magazine or about our events, which you should definitely do because we have some really cool events this year, go to queerlina.org. That's queerolina.org. All right. I love you all. Thank you so much. Have an amazing day, and take care of yourself, love yourself, and give yourself patience. Okay. Love you. Bye. I get into it and then I'm like, oh, I forgot to push record. Yeah. Okay. And then if it's easy to share, I guess, about what is the price range for your classes? Like, I don't know. What is the price range? I don't know why I was trying to clarify that. Like, you don't know what a price range is.
Tell me more. Tell me, ask a different way. One more time. You asked me about my prices? What is that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm teasing.
I don't know. Do you know? Can we cut that out? That was bad.